back, everybody. Today we'll be talking about Jane, also her species, which is Boa Constrictors. To know about boas, why they're different compared to other snakes, and I'll be showing it to you. So the first thing you might want to avoid when it comes to Boa Constrictors, in my opinion, is using some form of tools, such as this snake hook here, or even worse, something like this, tongs. This is definitely not a good idea, but even hooks, in my opinion, are completely unnecessary when it comes to boa keeping, if you keep them correctly and if you handle them often enough. Not too often, obviously, but later to that. And now I'll be showing you how easy it is when it comes to boa constrictors. Jane is slightly different when it comes to that, so I have to handle her slightly different. So you have to know your boa constrictor, but you will see. So basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pick her up right here. There we are. Yeah, good girl. So you can see right away she's grabbing, trying to grab to something, holding on to it. And here we are. Easy peasy. So this is how you pick up a boa. So with Jane, you can see her little tail here always needs holding something. So there's a beautiful face, and you can see she's right here. Not so easy doing it all by yourself, obviously. Try to get in focus for you. There she is. But yeah, that's basically how easy it is, even if she wasn't really in the mood today, but still she's completely fine. Sorry about that. It obviously is still during the day, so it's, since they're nocturnal, it's something you also want to avoid. Just look at that beauty here. Beautiful. The red tail. Quite a treat, isn't it? But yeah, what you also want to do is that they can basically hold on to something. That the entire body is basically secure, that they feel secure. And then they're completely fine handling, and then you don't really need any tool whatsoever, in my opinion. It just scares them. So you can see it's totally easy to handle it. Just not so easy filming them. But in my opinion, obviously there are different boas and different characters. So basically some boas are more easily spooked than others. Jane, as I said, is a complete sweetheart. But she has this little tick where she needs her tail to be completely secure, wrapped around something, otherwise she gets those ticks. And apparently that's on her mother's side. Basically a hog island boa. And this is just something they have. Not sure whether all hog islands have this, but in my opinion it really isn't that big of a deal. But the great news is that other than that, Jane is completely easy to handle. Bit me once, but that was it. And it was my fault. So, because basically it happened during feeding, and I didn't really focus too much, didn't think that she would flick around this fast, and I used the wrong tongs too, so basically the small ones, and that's it. So yeah, that's tip number one. Handling boas, if you know them, you usually do not need to use any tools. You can just pick them up like this and they should be totally fine. So, next point is don't overhandle your boa. Rule of thumb here is rather easy. You shouldn't like pick a schedule or something. So saying, some people say like they want to hold them for like half an hour, others an hour, of 45 minutes, an hour or something. In my opinion, that's wrong. You should basically decide on the body language and how the boa reacts to you, whether or not they want to get away. If they want to get away, then you should definitely let them, or at least don't overdo it. With Jane, it's also rather interesting. She once basically showed me by huffing, so it was a little bit before hissing, so she was basically puffing up and making a sound like this, which is self-explanatory because us humans also do it, and so you would definitely know that she is fed up with handling. And as I said, also handling them during the day might not be best idea unless you're shooting, or sometimes I'll be handling her outside that she catches some rays, and then that's nice too. But other than that, I try not handling her during the day. So yeah, that's something you should avoid as well. So I'll be putting her back now, and then we get to point number 3, I think, or 4 even, with the little extra point. Oh, sorry. Another thing with boa constrictors, or any other snake really for that matter, is overdoing it when it comes to social media and shooting. So always know when they had enough. Unfortunately, I cannot show you this, but once Jane basically used her tail almost like a cat. Or dog, some people might mistake that, but I'm pretty sure that was not a friendly flick. So she flicked her tail at me, almost like a monitor lizard. And this was rather interesting. Never seen that before, and unfortunately I tried to take a video, but that was basically just heat of the moment kind of situation. I didn't have the camera ready, and so I can't show you that. But that was really interesting. Let me know if you experienced something similar with your snake, because I never heard of that before. But that was interesting. So yeah, don't overdo it when it comes to shooting, especially outside. I remember that once I shot some nice shots outside on the balcony. It was just like 10 minutes in or something, but then I felt that she was really, really hot. It was a hot day, and she basically always tried to get into the flower pots, and you definitely tell that she needed cooling down. So immediately I took her inside. So yeah, that's also something that is important when it comes to basically all animals, really. Treat them with respect. They should always come first, no doubt about it. As beautiful as they are, and right now she's just bloody gorgeous, sitting there, totally calm, totally still. Might actually take a shot. Yeah, just like that, you can tell that they're completely relaxed, that they're fine with being watched, even or filmed, or taking photos. So if you want to take photos, that's totally fine. Bat, overdoing it definitely might stress them out, and a stressed snake, or stressed animal for that matter, is never good, obviously. In the long run, it might not pay off. Something that you should provide them with, so not giving them any climbing opportunities is, in my opinion, almost a crime, or it is a crime to nature and to bows, because they are tree dwellers. Some are arboreal and quite often found in the trees, even larger individuals, because if they're not overfed, and I'll come to that later as well, in the wild, they usually, as I said before, I've seen a boa constrictor in the wild and you would not believe how slender they are. They are slender in the wild because they do not eat as often. They are opportunistic feeders, but basically they do not eat as often. Either they choose not to, or they basically cannot. But in the wild, they have heaps of opportunities climbing around and roaming around. As you can see, they're also rather active. Now she might want to get away. We'll see what she does. But not giving them any opportunity to climb is a crime. Keeping boas in racks, in my opinion, is debatable. Yes, if you are a breeder, I think it's a different ball game altogether. I call those snakes anyways cattle snakes, because they are not really your pet. And calling snakes pets is also debatable, but I definitely have a strong attachment to Jane, and to me, she is like a pet, or a friend even. So keeping her in a rack, I could never ever believe, could never ever think that I would do that. But if you're obviously a breeder and you're making money with it, and let's face it, without them, where would we be? Certainly couldn't keep our animals at the price we do. In my opinion, way too cheap anyways. I said that before. So that might be another thing to avoid. Selling boas too cheap, selling animals too cheap is not a good idea, because this way it'll basically attract the wrong crowd and people that you do not want, that keep your animals, or keep animals in general, because they might not take care the way they're supposed to. Which brings us to point number 6, 7, which is keeping boas in the wrong conditions. And this is basically, as a beginner or even intermediate keeper, you can avoid certain mistakes. Mistake number 1 is getting a red-tailed boa, a true red-tailed boa, which is a boa constrictor or constrictor nowadays, instead of an imperator. Because with the imperator, you basically can keep them, well, they will basically forgive more of your mistakes if you're still making any. And let's face it, we are not really perfect. None of us are. So getting a boa constrictor without experiencing having an imperator, in my opinion, is something you should avoid, because they're rather similar. As a beginner or even intermediate, you might not tell the difference at first. With Jane, it's rather interesting because she's a mixture between the two. Her mum is a Hog Island, thus a Imperator or Imperator, however you want to pronounce it. There's certainly different ways to pronounce it. Latin names, you never know how they pronounce it really. So I say always like however you feel like it. So I say Imperator, but however you want to pronounce it is fine. And then there is the true boa constrictor. There is also Emerali or Emerali or Longicauda or Longicauda, however you want to say that again. Obviously, let's just focus on the two, boa constrictor and Imperator. Her dad being a Suriname. And Suriname is a true boa constrictor, true red tail. That is why she actually has a rather bright red tail, as you can still see now. Usually there would be more orange, being also a Hog Island. They have rather orange tails, which in my opinion is a perfect combination between the two. So it's a very sunny red color that she has. And yeah, so basically getting a boa constrictor before getting a Imperator or even a mix. Usually they are mixed these days. So if you get a boa constrictor, you probably would get some sort of Colombian boa. And that's definitely a good idea. If you want something smaller, then you probably would get a male. If you want something bigger, then a female. And there are other awesome Imperators like the Terra boa. They're awesome, beautiful snakes, similar colored to Jane, but a lot smaller. So they would stay roughly the size she's now. Jane will grow to roughly 6-7 feet as a parent. You will soon see the parents, by the way. So we're looking forward to that, showing you them. I'll show you some pictures as well for now, but really looking forward to showing you them in face to face, basically. So yeah, boa constrictors and Imperators, something slightly different. An Imperator, I think even a beginner could have, if they know this, the size, have the space, and preferably do not handle them on their own, especially if they might not be too tall or strong, because boa constrictors are amongst the strongest snakes, or they are the strongest snakes, really. So if you have a large boa constrictor and you're a tiny person, that might not be such a good idea if you keep them on your own. So I'm fine handling Jane, even if she is fully grown. As I said, 6-7 feet I'm pretty sure I can handle. Larger than that, you probably shouldn't be or shouldn't keep boa constrictors by yourself. And then there is another issue that many of us overlook when it comes to boas, or any boas really, and this is letting them wrap around your neck. Seems totally fine, totally okay, because they are our pets, our friends. They would never ever harm us. Yeah, well, they do not intend to, but they can. You should be aware that even a 4-foot boa constrictor is capable of actually knocking you out. If you don't believe me, you can only take my word for it, but Jane almost did, because I totally underestimated her, and she was wrapped around my Adam's apple, and yeah, that wasn't a good idea. And I said it before, if we mess up, people in the hobby might suffer as well, because some countries or states might decide against boa constrictors or any other boats, and then this is definitely something you should avoid. So yeah, please do learn from my mistakes as well. I would suggest do not let them wrap around your neck fully. I, for instance, if she wants to climb on me, I just let her crawl onto me, but never let her wrap around the entire neck. This way I can always be sure that nothing happens. And should something happen, for instance, she should really bite or wrap around or whatever, then always have something ready. For instance, disinfectant spray, or some just blow them in their mouth. And that sometimes deters them as well. So especially if they just bite you, you can do that. How to avoid getting bitten, you should know. If you get a snake, obviously you should always be aware that you can get bitten, even if you have a nice one, just like Jane. It's really a sweetheart, as I said before, but I'm always aware that she could potentially bite me and could potentially wrap around me, being a boa constrictor. There are no known fatalities when it comes to boa constrictors, by the way. But technically they could, because as I said before, they're the strongest snakes. So if they were the same size as anacondas, for instance, they'd be stronger. And then there is another issue with boa constrictors, quite often overlooked, and that's feeding. People very often overfeed their boas. I often hear people saying, and even really good ones in our hobby, they're saying feeding them every week is a good idea. It's debatable if you're a breeder and you want them to basically breed for you, then that might be something I will not get into that because I'm not a breeder, so I wouldn't know. But as a keeper, in my opinion, there is a rule of thumb, and it's rather easy. The first year, feed them every week. The second, every second week. The third, and then the fourth. But the fourth obviously should be, so the fourth year, you feed them every 4 weeks, a month. And that's it basically. So unless you feed them something rather large, like a rabbit, that is another issue. Don't feed them rabbits their entire lives when they're fully grown, because they might also get too fat, or they will get too fat, simply because rabbits are fat. So a large rat then should be their meal. A large rat every 4 to even 5 weeks is fine for really large specimens. But feeding a fully grown boa constrictor every week will definitely lead to them being too fat. So feeding boa constrictors every 2 weeks, a large meal, in my opinion, is too much. It's certainly something that you can decide for yourself, and many of us still do. What I can tell you is that there are known incidents where boa constrictors died because they were fed too often. They got fatty liver disease and they died. Sometimes they even died earlier than 5 years, so didn't reach maturity yet, or not fully grown. So basically they died being 5 years old or even younger than that because of fatty liver disease. The problem with boa constrictors is that they grow. When they're young, they look rather slim, and sometimes people think they are too slim and they're too small, then they power feed them or they feed them too often. And then that's a problem because you would not see them getting fat just like us. Basically, when we eat, or even babies, when they eat too much, they would get fat. But boa constrictors, it's different with them. The metabolism is different, so it only shows when they're adults, and then it might be too late because quite often you see boa constrictors, which I find always rather curious, with small heads and really fat bodies. And that is where you can tell definitely your boa constrictor is way too fat. Because if the proportion is right, then your snake is right. So again, that's rather easy if you want to put them on a diet, how to get there. You want them to look like this. Obviously, don't overdo it. Don't all of a sudden don't feed them too little. It's also bad, obviously, because they're used to this kind of food, but reduce it slightly. And obviously see a doctor as well, a vet. They should check that for you, and then you can talk to them about how you want to go about it. Also exchange your thoughts with other boa constrictor keepers, especially those who might actually talk about it, that you should not feed them too often. They might have some hints for you, some tips. I never had a boa constrictor that was too fat, so I wouldn't know. But I'm certain there's some people who kept other boa constrictors who were too fat because they rescued them and they would know how to go about it. So yeah, those were the points that you should definitely avoid when it comes to boa constrictors. If there are other issues that you would know regarding boa constrictors, or even any other type of boas or other snakes, let me know. Always curious hearing from you. Hope you enjoyed this. If you learned something, give it a thumbs up. Might even consider subscribing. There are definitely more videos to come. I took a break just the other week, but usually I upload every week, and sometimes twice even. So yeah, be on the lookout. Support our channel, that'd be awesome, as we're working towards conservation. Hopefully this year it will be done, but we're definitely working towards this goal and are looking forward to the whole journey with you, and are happy and thankful for everyone who subscribed to us. Cheers so much, you guys. Still enjoy doing those videos, making them for you, and hopefully in the future we might present you even better quality and more enjoyable stuff as well. But hopefully so far you're not too disappointed. I don't think you are. Obviously not all the videos can be the same. I like to experiment with them, showing you different stuff. As you might have seen, not every video is the same. I mean, that's quite something ordinary, but on this channel it's even a little more different, because I think I experimented the past 20 videos or so. I think it's the 21st now. So yeah, already there, very close to 30, which some of you might know is a rather important mark on YouTube. All right, everybody. So, thank you very much for watching, listening, and hopefully learning. Have a good one. Cheers.